Hello, and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person. And today I want to talk to you, presumably also a real person, who knows, about Pokemon Picross for the Nintendo 3DS. And there's not a whole lot to say up front except that I did 100% complete this game. Despite it being a free to play game where you can spend money, I spent no money on this game, and it took me roughly a year to do so. So, that's, I think, all you need to know up front, other than, there's a written review. I'll link that in the description, and you can do that before or after, or instead of this. You know the drill, unless you're new here, in which case, oh well. And if you want more details on how to play Picross, I have a Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess Picross review. You can look that one up also, or just look up Picross in general. I'm not going to be super detailed, but maybe I'll be more detailed in the review also. I don't know. We'll see. You never know which game is going to be someone's first Picross game. Okay, but that's all that. So Pokemon Picross is simply a Picross game with the Pokemon theme. At least at the outset here, it's free to play. And it is a Nintendo 3DS eShop exclusive. And I guess the brief explanation of Picross is like, it's sort of like Sudoku-ish, in like it's a logic puzzle, where essentially you're given a grid with a bunch of numbers on the rows and columns, and each set of numbers in a row or column indicates that there'll be that many boxes filled, right next to each other continuously, and in that order. So if it's like 1, 2, 1, there has to be a single box and then at least one box of a space before having two boxes right next to each other filled together, filled in, and then like another space at least before another one shows up. Something like that. And that's basically the gist of how you do that, and there's, lots of little tips and tricks and everything to figure that out, but that's the main gist of Picross. This game has you basically completing all these little pictures that once you're done filling in all the numbers and satisfy all of the squares that need to be filled in, and you can place X's to squares that can't be filled in and all that. Once you've got everything all logicked out and finished, you get a picture of a Pokemon. The game also teaches you how to play, so don't worry too much. It's not like you have to know before you start. It'll ease you into it and show you how to play. When you complete a picture, you get the Pokemon in the picture. That's how you capture the Pokemon in this game. And then you can use them, you can bring them along to attempt other puzzles. And every Pokemon has its own Pokemon ability, which depends on the type of Pokemon that it is. So, for example, all Fire-type Pokemon have the same ability, and all Water-type Pokemon have the same ability, all Grass-type Pokemon have the same ability. The differences mainly are that, depending on the kind of ability, it'll either last longer, or just be have more uses, or be more effective. Just basically, you'll have different variations of how effective it is and the maximum puzzle sizes. There are 10 by 10 puzzles, 15 by 15 puzzles, and at largest 15 by 20 puzzles. So there's a lot to go through, and you have to kind of go through this branching path of these different levels within each area. You have to complete a level, and then it'll unlock the paths branching out from that level to unlock other levels you can attempt. And once you beat the final level of an area, like, you'll be given like the option to unlock the next area if you have enough pick rights, which we'll get to that in a minute. The other thing is that, like, the different abilities are things like, basically they're gamifying the hint system here. So there are things like reveal skills, where it'll reveal certain tiles at certain points in the board. Like cross reveal will make this T shape, and either, depending on if it's one where you can choose where to put it, some of them just do it randomly. Some of them make it so you have to do it at the start, which any ability you do at the start you can only do at the start. And then some can be done anytime, which has to be done not at the start, but can be done anytime after that. That'll just make a cross of a bunch of tiles that it'll just reveal all of the squares within that crosshair that shows up. There's also things like Blue Force. I got some other reveal skills quick. There's Scatter Reveal. Does a bunch of little random ones. There's like there's a cross reveal and a slash reveal, which are just a vertical or horizontal one. Or it's a slash reveal and rising reveal. Then there's also things like hyperscan, which can check for any mistakes that you've made on the board. There's blue force, which basically highlights numbers that the hint numbers where you can at this current point in time logic out, okay, there's something to be done here. Because sometimes there's not really any logic where something has to be yet, and so those won't be highlighted. And then there's autofix and autofix X, which basically autofix is that if you try to place, fill in a square that isn't supposed to be filled in, it will correct you. Autofix X does something similar, except that it also will actually fill in a square if you incorrectly try to cross out a square. So there's a little difference there, but they're like that. There's also a square reveal and a diamond reveal. Square reveal just reveals a square area, and diamond reveal reveals a diamond-shaped area. You can kind of figure that out, but that's the reveal. Most of the skills are pretty self-explanatory. There's also slow time, which slows down the timer by a certain amount, which compounds with other uses of slow time. And there's also there's freeze time, which will just freeze the timer entirely for a certain period of time. So those, I believe, are all of the skills that the abilities the Pokemon can have. And you get those as you catch them. And also, when you use them, you use an ability with a Pokemon in a puzzle. After that, it's on cooldown. Some of them have no cooldown time. Some of them have, things that can be anywhere from like 30 minutes to 30 hours. Depends on the Pokemon. Generally, Pokemon that require that are going to have the more powerful skills are going to take longer to regenerate those skills, and they're also going to have larger puzzles to accommodate getting them. There are also a few Pokemon that are locked off via the putting in passwords, which I think for the most part the passwords were all just handed out as like social media and stuff, like little event things. But you can just look up the passwords at this point and just put all those in to make those Pokemon appear. Some Pokemon are dubbed to be mythical or legendary. You can tell by the little like shinier border they get around them, like a gold border. So those are usually a lot of the mythical ones, and are ones that essentially only show up every once in a while. And then if you can get to the area and get to the stage to try it, you can try to get it, and if you get it, then you have that Pokemon, and you can redo the puzzle whenever you want. But if you miss the time frame, you have to wait for it to show up again. And it's kind of on a timer-based system of like, after you do so many puzzles or something, or after you get the last one, then you have to wait so long for this next one to appear, and then you have to wait so long between its appearances. And it's semi-random as to what appears when. Even though they do show up in fixed places. The other thing I was mentioning before was pick rights. You need those to unlock areas. They're the in-game currency, essentially. And you need those to unlock areas. You need them to do things like if you want to refill your energy gauge, because filling in a square, it takes 1 point of energy. So if you want to refill your energy gauge to play more, or if you want to expand your energy gauge, you can do that. You can only bring so many Pokemon with you at a time, but if you use pick rights, you can actually expand the slots up to 5 slots of Pokemon to bring with you at a time. And so that's mainly how you progress, is you use pick rights to unlock the next areas, and as you go along, it takes more and more pick rights. But you can also get pick rights by completing the missions. There are missions on each of these puzzles. Usually they're things like complete it within a certain amount of time, use a certain ability, use a certain type of Pokemon, or sometimes, don't use a Pokemon. There's some things like that as well. And generally also they'll all have a mission at the end where it says complete all missions at the same time. And you'll get a few pick rights for doing each of those. You can also get them by doing a daily training puzzle every day, which is just a rapid fire of multiple smaller, 7x7 puzzles. You do those, and if you complete it, you'll get a few pick rights. If you complete it within the target time, you'll go up a training level and get a few extra pick rights until you hit the cap. And once you hit the cap, then it's just that you'll get a few extra pick rights every time you beat the target time. And as you progress through the areas and unlock more areas at certain points during that, you'll also get a slight increase to the amount you get daily, probably because the amount it takes to go to each successive area, it takes more and more pick rights to get across those. There are also, you can also buy them as well. That's another option, is that you can go to the shop and just buy pick rights. Then there's Every once in a while, as rewards, instead of getting pick rights for completing missions, you'll get a mural tile. There are these mural puzzles. There's one for Groudon, for Primal Groudon and Primal Kyogre, or however you say that one. I feel like I always get it said, and I spell it wrong. I say it wrong all the time. But the Gen 3 legendaries, there are these big murals of those, and essentially each mural tile is like a 10 by 10 puzzle. And there's just a bunch of those that fill out an entire grid. So it's a huge grid of 10 by 10 puzzles. You all do one section at a time until eventually, once it's all done, you get a huge, very pixelated picture of the Pokemon. And it records the amount of time it took you to do all of those puzzles combined and everything. And so that's also a reward you get. There are also Pokemon can Mega Evolve in this. And to do that, you basically just have to obtain the Mega Pencil, which takes a lot of pick rights. I think the Mega Pencil, I believe, was 500 pick rights. And to give you, yeah, I think it was that was 500 for that. And then once you have the Mega Pencil, you can Mega Evolve Pokemon. So if you can get to the Pokemon stage where they Mega Evolve, you can then attempt to do that. And then you get the Mega Form to use. You can only use one Mega Evolved Pokemon in your party at a time, and you can't use both the Standard and the Mega Evolved Pokemon at the same time. You have to use one or the other. But generally, their abilities are really helpful. They're just more potent abilities, like you would expect from a Pokemon that Mega Evolves. Is a little bit stronger. You get more out of it. You get the idea. So those are the Megas. And then at any point, once you get 300 pick rights, and I think maybe it does. I think it is at a certain point you have to unlock it, but before you're even available to try it, maybe. But you can unlock Alt World if you use 300. It's 300 pick rights to unlock that, and it's just an alternate version of the main world. All of the stages are the same stages; they're just in a different order, and you can only go to areas in the alt world that you've already unlocked in your progression on the main world. And here there's also missions. You won't actually get pick rights for these missions, for these ones, but you can catch all these Pokemon here too. So I think, as far as I understand it, you can still catch maybe a few Pokemon out of sequence from the main world if you did it, but I did it so far late, like so much later, that I already had all the stages. I already had all the Pokemon by then, so you're not getting any new Pokemon from doing that. And all of the usually the challenges are harder for the missions. There are things like you complete it in a shorter amount of time, and to not use certain abilities, or to use an ability very few times, set only so many Pokemon, that type of thing. They're trying to be more challenging with it. And the other thing is that this is Mega Picross, which is similar, except that every once in a while you get these mega numbers that basically take up 2 columns or 2 rows, and that means that you have to have a block of numbers that touches each other like that. Has to be directly on the cardinal directions, touching each other to make it contiguous. And so if it was so you have to have like whatever in the 2 rows before a mega number and the 2 rows after a mega number would have to go onto the left and right of those in order for it to fit between them. So you still use the same kind of logic, and it's the same puzzles, but the way it presents itself to you is different. So that's the main thing with it. And then eventually, once you beat all of the challenges and everything, and all the areas and all the Pokemon, there are also just achievements you do. There's a little list of those where if you complete those, you get a few pick rights for doing each of those. Usually things like just using skills a certain amount of times, filling in a bunch of squares. Natural progression is going to get you some of those too. And you can, have a few where you need to use specific combinations of Pokemon, do more specific tasks here and there. And then you get one for completing all the rest of those. You get the final achievement. And I did all of those. And that's the game after that point. Then you're done. Okay, and as far as things that I liked about this, there are things I did like. The concept was nice enough, there's already some pretty decent sprite work in Pokemon in a lot of games, so just making little pictures of the Pokemon with a Picross format. I thought that would be fun. It's fun to just make that stuff, and Picross is just kind of fun and relaxing to do. Um, so I enjoyed that. I also kind of like that you still caught Pokemon and that they kind of had like their types and stuff like played some type of role in what you were doing. Like it was kind of interesting to see that. Um, they didn't just totally ignore the Pokemon thing in there. It wasn't just like here's Picross with a Pokemon skin. They tried to gamify it and do something with it, and I do appreciate that. Um, and there's a decent amount of stages once it's all said and done. Uh, and like I guess it was sort of interesting the way they gamified the hint system. Um, in case you wanted to use those hints and stuff, they were pretty helpful and an interesting way to make it not just feel like, hey, just tell me what to do because I don't know, I'm stuck. Um, Plus, it's free, so that all that kind of came together as an interesting idea. The problem is, um, uh, most of that stuff really clashes with itself. Like, it just I don't like that I have to use hints to complete these missions. Sometimes I just want to solve the puzzle, and if I just try to solve the puzzle and then go back later and then do the missions, then it's like, well, I don't want to have to do it again because I've already done it. It's not interesting to do the same puzzle over and over, and at that point too, also like the energy becomes a problem. You can eventually expand your energy gauge so it's infinite, but it takes a lot of pick rights, which takes a lot of time. And so you need to do the challenges to get those pick rights. You also need to get those pick rights so you can unlock more areas. So you have more stages to do that are actually unique. So the game just makes you wait a long time to actually access more content, which is infuriating. I mean, I don't know. I'm really annoyed with that. So that kind of comes together as being annoying there. And then even like when you want to use those hints and do stuff, you go to the alt world and all of a sudden now you can't use your hints and make it easy on yourself because a lot of times you can't use the ones you want to use that are going to make it the easiest for you. And they want to make it more challenging, but if you wanted it challenging, then the first part's going to be annoying when you couldn't be challenged because you're forced to use things that are going to make it easier for you. And you can't just play it like a casual Picross game because you're over here waiting for your fucking pick rights all the goddamn time. Rather than actually being able to play something new and interesting, you're just doing the daily challenge every fucking day for, a week to 2 weeks at a time, getting enough pick rights to get to the next area to actually have something unique and fun to do. And so it really kills even that casual experience of it because you're not going to have anything to do outside of like one set of puzzles a day. One set of those really quick rapid fire puzzles that are not really the same kind of thing because they're forcing you to go fast. And it's not really that fun to try to think when you're going that fast. If I have a puzzle game, I'm trying to logic things out, I want time to be able to think about it and do it. So I don't really care for the timer, nor do I care for the idea of actually making it time so I'm going to fail missions and whatnot if I don't do it within this strict amount of time. And it also is really frustrating because it doesn't really feel like there's any reason this needs to be a free-to-play game. Because it's not like it's being updated. It's not like they have like servers or something online they need to use for like, oh, we need to like constantly update this stuff or keep players for doing this multiplayer thing or whatever. It's a solo contained experience. The only reason you connect to the internet to even do this is one, to download the game because it's just a virtual, whatever, it's a digital title. And the other reason is because if you want to buy pick rights to make the game go faster. And if you're making a free-to-play game, you have to assume that someone playing the game is going to play it without paying money. If the game isn't fun to play if you're not paying money, maybe it's a game that you should just have to buy in the first place because it's not very fun. That's interesting. I don't know. That's just really baffling to me. I don't know. That really pisses me off. That a lot of times that isn't considered, and I don't know. That's more of just a rant about a lot of these free-to-play games in general, but this one just feels so gross because they could have easily taken that element out of it and it would have been fine. It's just a nice free game. Or they could have just made it a game you pay 10 or 15 bucks for or something on the eShop. Maybe 5, I don't know. Just pay a sum of money so you have the entirety of the game with you, and then you don't have to worry about waiting all the goddamn time to actually play the game you want to play. And even then it will still be, at odds with itself with all the hints and how you're kind of forced into using hints if you don't want to use hints, or how, when you want to use hints you can't use hints and that kind of thing. So it really is butting heads with itself at every turn. Wow, the lighting sure changed in here, didn't it? See, Pokemon Picross in general is a game that just isn't really worth your time. I mean, you can play it for free and you can have some fun with it. It's a fine time waster, but between playing actual games. But I don't even think it's that great of a thing for Pokemon fans. It doesn't use a whole lot of Pokemon stuff other than, you get to see Pokemon in it. Um, that's about it. It's just, it's not, I don't know, it's not something I would really recommend bothering with. I mean, I guess it's not like it's a waste of your money because you can play it for free, but it's just not really worth the time to get frustrated and bored with it. And by the end, it was just agonizing where I just wanted it to be over with. The cooldowns on the abilities even make the infinite energy kind of a problem anyway. Because, oh man, by the end, I was just kind of, trying to pick certain Pokemon that had their cooldowns down so I could just rapid fire get through the whole game. But because there were even cooldowns, they'd have to take those out if they were going to make it just like a pay to play this. And you can't, as far as I know, you can't refresh the cooldowns on the Pokemon either. You should have let that be done with Picross. You could have been even greedier for this game that doesn't need to be. Why not? So I don't know. The only reason to really 100% complete this game would be so that you can have all of the puzzles ready, and then once you've had enough time pass, and you're just not battle scarred anymore, you're like, okay, now I'm gonna play Pokemon Picross and just go through all the puzzles and enjoy it for the puzzles, because I don't have to do any fucking missions. I don't have to worry about unlocking shit or worrying about pick rights and waiting. I can just play a Picross game and play the game that this should have been in the first place. But as for me, I don't think I'm gonna bother because it was so agonizing to finally just finish it and get it the fuck over with after a year of playing it every fucking day that I just don't want to play it anymore. I just don't want to play it anymore, and I don't know. I can't imagine that it's worth your time to get invested to the point where it would be fun to have it totally done. Just don't do it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Pokemon Picross and free-to-play games and Pokemon games and whatever other shit you want to put in the comments? I mean, most people don't, but if you want to do that, if you would do that, that would be cool. And I guess now all I have to do is finish playing Pokemon Masters enough to review that at some point, because right now that's really the only free-to-play Pokemon game I'm still playing, and, that feels good. It feels good to not be imprisoned by these free-to-play Pokemon games just because I wanted to review them. So, that's my rant about why Pokemon Picross sucks. It's still, and it's what's even harsher is that it feels more disgusting and, more frustrating than Pokemon Go. It's a better game than that, but Pokemon Go at least was, there's some kind of experience to it. It feels like it's more face value. It doesn't feel like it's being ruined by these things in here. It just feels like, they just want to prey on you with them, but they're not actually ruining what the core experience is by putting those things in here, in there. And Pokemon Picross did. And I don't know. That's my rant. How long was it? 20 oh, Jesus Christ, over 20 minutes. Cool. That's how you do